Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Are we good to go? We're ready?
I think we're good, Marnie.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the CMHA Housing Program installation of Edmonton Housing Month. My name's Marnie, Marnie McRae, and I'm proud to be the manager of the CMHA Housing Program. I've worked in housing for 25 years, 20 of which have been in the Edmonton region. I've worked with everyone from homeless youth to managing a 90-unit seniors lodge. And I've been at CMHA in this role for almost 2 years, so I'm happy to be here. We're going to go through slide presentation, of course, and then at the end we'll have time for question and answers. But before we get started, let's just take a moment to connect with the land we are currently standing on, the Indigenous lands of Turtle Island. Edmonton is located within Treaty 6 territory in Métis Nation, Region 4. We acknowledge that we are here on traditional territories of many First Nations, Métis and Inuit people. Please express gratitude and respect for the land we use, pledge to end systemic racism, and commit to advancing reconciliation through our work here today. Thank you. All right, so CMHA Housing Services has a long history of helping Edmonton's vulnerable and in need of safe, secure housing and affordable housing for almost 50 years. So we have a long history in the city. We could probably go to the next slide, Jessica, if you don't mind. Here's a list of our buildings. We currently have 7 properties in our portfolio, and for a total of 146 units. We have 2 properties in Inglewood area. We have 2 in Central McDougall neighborhood, 2 in Montrose, and 1 in Queen Mary's Park. I'll just describe a little bit about each building. So you can move on, Jessica, that's perfect. So we call Wood Manor our hidden gem. It's a little 9-unit building. Rent here is affordable rent, which is defined by 15% below market value. It's a nice, quiet building, tucked away, very tiny. It's a nice one. So it was an original hostel accommodation for 14 people that had a staff. We've had it in our portfolio, I believe, since 1977. So it's been with us for a long time. And next we have Citrus Court. Citrus Court is a 27-unit apartment building, a 3-story walk-up. It has 26 one-bedrooms and 1 2-bedroom. Again, it's also considered affordable rent, so 15% below market value. And also on the property, there's a beautiful community garden attached to it. So resident tenants there enjoy growing, gardening, flowers, plants. They had a huge crop of tomatoes. Their peas were like 6 feet tall. It was they had a really good, took in a good haul, and it seems like they really, some like to garden, some don't, but they seem to share the benefits of it. So that's really great. Edward Street is the newest building in our portfolio. There's 27 bachelor units, 7 of which are barrier free. So it is our only building with an elevator. So it is nice to have the option for people who have mobility issues to look into that building. Again, it's also 15% below market rent. Next, we have Northern Arms. So this is our newest property acquisition. So we purchased this building in 2015. It's a nice tiny 15-unit building. Here, rent is market value, And 2 units of this building are actually allocated to Youth Housing First in their partnership in a partnership with Homeward Trust. And it's been a very successful partnership for the most part. So some of the tenants that have lived here prior to us purchasing the building still remain, and it's a nice quiet area. So tenants really seem to like it. The other 3 properties in our portfolio, the first 4 were CMHA owned properties. These next 3 are properties that we manage on behalf of the province as part of our provincial not-for-profit housing agreement. So we have Place 103, which is a 31-bedroom building, and Santa Rosa A and Santa Rosa B are 19-unit buildings, but they have 8 2-bedroom apartments in each one, so which is perfect for mom single parents or small families. And these properties are rent geared to income, so tenants actually pay 30% of their rent, of their income in rent. So yeah, so all of our properties are basically north side of the river, mostly in the downtown core, and then just north side of downtown. We work to provide safe, secure, affordable housing for people with mental illness or low income. Applicants need to be 18 plus, and they need to be able to live independently in the community. So functionally independent is the key. We don't have on-site staff. We are not supportive living. What we do subscribe to, and where we kind of sit on the housing continuum, is we consider ourselves a supportive landlord, mostly because of who we are. We have a greater awareness of mental illness. We have the ability to access tenants or to link them with supports, but also we connect tenants to community supports and work to make sure that they are receiving the support they need, whether that's a mental health therapist or linking them to some sort of community worker. Here's some recent stats. I guess they're a year old now, but we do have, like I said, 146 units. We have 39% of our tenants have lived in our properties for more than 10 years. We have 10 tenants that actually have lived here for more than 25 years, which is unbelievable. Best tenants ever. So at the end of 2021, we had 137 adults and 12 children living in our properties. About 58% of our tenants receive AISH. And a stat that isn't on there is actually, it's almost a 50-50 split between male and female tenants, which is, that works out nice for the community aspect of the apartment living. So next we have our housing staff, our housing services staffing team. I should preface that this is what it would be in a perfect world. It's not this now. Obviously, I'm the housing manager. In a perfect world, we'll have 1 full-time, 1 part-time maintenance coordinator. We work closely with our advocacy and wayfinding coordinators here at CMHA to link tenants to support, and they're awesome for providing referrals, helping with paperwork, helping with applications. We have a tenant liaison person that works at our Place 103 building. Also, that position is available at Edward Street. And then in the past, we've had some of our tenants actually work part-time for us as employees, doing janitor and ground maintenance, which we'd like to get back to. So that's kind of a breakdown of the staffing team. Some of the important community connections that we have, obviously we're in partnership with Homeward Trust, Edmonton Housing First program. We are members of the Alberta Residential Landlords Association and also APA, which is the Alberta Public Housing Administrator. So we're part of the crime-free multi-housing program with EPS as well. So we're certified in that every year. They inspect the properties, and it's a good way to maintain a good relationship with EPS as well. So these community relationships are so important and really an intricate part of what we do. So how to apply? So first of all, our application is available on our website. So it can be downloaded right from the website, or we can mail one. Obviously, that will work too, fax, scan, whatever needs to happen. So all applicants must be over 18 years plus, have some sort of rental history, preferably reference from a previous landlord. They need to be capable of independent living, in need of subsidized housing. So with past or present mental health concerns or low income. So it's a really broad range of who can apply. And people can be referred by workers from HS, from many different places, social workers, from emergency shelters, or individuals can refer themselves. What we require in the application, because we work with government criteria in the Alberta government housing, community housing program, we use the same application process for our own properties as the ones we manage. So what we need in order for someone to have a complete application package is we need our application completed. We need a copy of their most current income statement. We need a community support letter, preferably written by someone who will stay as their community support after they move in as a tenant. So one requirement is that our tenants always have a community support system in place, or a person in place, agency, because that's how we are able to keep in touch with those workers and really try to make the tenancy successful. And that's why we have such long-term tenants. It works. So once the application is completed and in full, we score it and assess it against government criteria set out in the Alberta Housing Act. And it's based on need. It's never when someone applies, it's always based on needs. So the wait list fluctuates all the time. It has nothing to do with when someone applies. That makes sense. When a vacancy comes up, we start at the top of the wait list and work our way down until the vacancy is filled. So applicants are usually contacted by phone, or if we are unable to reach them, we would contact that community support person if they're being offered housing. So yeah, anyways, that was quick. So before we move on to questions, I just want to just give a shout out to a couple people that help me do my job all the time. So Courtney and Melissa are from our advocacy and wayfinding program. I could not work without them, and they assist me daily with amazing problem solving skills and resources. So thank you. Gail, our Director of Operations and Programs, also an excellent resource, and she knows the housing program inside out because she ran it for many years. And Jessica, of course, for arranging the whole thing so that I just had to show up. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. my work is never boring, and our tenants are incredible. They make me smile every single day. So anyways, yeah, any questions?
If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and I can read them out to Marnie. Okay, we have a question from Hillary. Would CMHA be considered harm reduction housing?
No, not officially, not in that sense. So we do have no smoking and no marijuana use policies in place in our housing. So anyone who I've moved in since I've worked here is with a no smoking agreement. And just because marijuana became legal doesn't mean that you can grow or smoke marijuana in your suite. So obviously addiction issues come up, and that's where the community support is necessary and needs to be in place so that community agencies can support that person that's experiencing addiction issues. But it would, actively using in our housing program, because it would be a trigger for the rest of our tenants potentially. So it wouldn't be something that we would prefer, I guess.
Our next question is from Rochelle. What are the support workers called? Is there cultural supports available?
We don't have in the housing program specific cultural support, although that's very good feedback. So we have a building liaison that works in one building. He works like an hour a day, mostly doing making sure the property is safe and secure. And we have potentially a vacancy in another building for that type of staff member as well. However, in the other building, it would be more providing tenant resources and like maybe 12 hours a week potentially. That one is also a live-in based employment, so they have to be prepared to live in the building. So as far as cultural supports go, our whole staff has had cultural awareness training, and also because we do so much more than the housing program, which is actually a small portion of what we do here at CMHA. We obviously have 211 distress line. We're launching some new programs, advocacy and wayfinding. We have Prosper Place, which we've now integrated with in the West End. And yeah, we have unlimited resources available at any given time.
Right. Next question is from Adrian. What are your vacancies like? Also, do you serve any surrounding communities through any other housing programs?
Hi, thanks. So vacancies are dependent. I mean, obviously we have long-term tenants, so sometimes there's more vacancies, sometimes there's less vacancies. Vacancy at any given time, there is a wait list, and I can tell you right now the average time on our wait list is about 9 months. However, with that being said, someone could apply today and be housed in December. And someone could have applied like in January and not have housing yet because the wait list is based on need. We don't actually manage any properties outside of the city or in our Canadian mental health Edmonton region, which is a very large region. It is something though that we're possibly considering in the future. At this time, we have nothing except for those 7 buildings inside the Edmonton city limits.
Thank you. Next question is from Eamon. Are there any further plans to increase the amount of housing available?
We definitely, it's always on our radar. So we look, it's just obviously, mortgages are really expensive, new builds are really expensive. It's always something, the need is there and we're well aware of that. And yeah, it's something that we talk about frequently.
Next question is from Peterman AJ. Does having a criminal record exclude participants, or does it depend on the offense?
It would never exclude, because everyone deserves to have a house. So there are situations, if there were conditions upon release, if specific conditions mean that an individual couldn't be around someone under 16 or so far away from an area, then that would possibly limit where we would end up being able to place that person. But no, it absolutely would not deter them from applying, nor would it deter us from housing them.
Next question, does CMHA also are we also involved with the development and construction of these housing units, or is it just the management of them?
Well, no, we were involved, like the newest building, like I said, that was built in 2011. That was a partnership between Edmonton Homeward Trust and us at CMHA. So we did partner in the build of that. The rest of our buildings we've acquired over time, and most of them have been in the portfolio for a long time. So they were already built. Like I think Wood Manor, for example, was actually built in the 60s. So we've had none of the rest we've built on our own, but it would be something, we're always looking for partnerships.
Awesome. This question may have already been answered, but I don't want to skip any questions. What is the typical waiting period an applicant should expect?
Yeah, so again, that fluctuates, and it should not be a deterrent if I say, currently the average wait list time is 9 months. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't apply and be housed very quickly, because it is based on that need. It's not about when they apply. So who's ever in greatest need gets housing first.
Out of curiosity, how do vacancies come up? For example, do tenants move on to different housing programs or move out as they now have more supports, financial resources available?
Not usually more financial resources available. I think the slide said that it was like 58% of our tenants are on AISH. So sometimes there's like physical or like an actual illness, aside from potential mental illness, but sometimes there's illness that they have to move on to more supportive living. But for the most part, they may have aged out. They may have become a senior, and they're going to move on to more senior self-contained apartments. Yeah, COVID was difficult on many tenants. I lost a few tenants during COVID. And then of course there's the odd eviction that we have to proceed with. So that's another reason for vacancies. Usually when a vacancy comes available, the apartment is in need of some work. So we take that time to transition and redo some of the whatever it needs, painting, carpet, whatever. Yeah, I hope that helps, answers that.
Thank you. From Jonathan, are you developing any new projects?
We don't have anything in the works as far as physical properties right now. Again, like I mentioned, it is something that we are looking into, and we're also looking at really identifying where we kind of fit in the housing continuum differently than a lot of landlords, especially private landlords. So we are always looking and trying to engage. So that will be maybe more information that I can provide next year. So it's in the works. We're working on things behind the scenes.
Thank you. From Michael, when providing assistance to a client or patient, is there a consent document included in the application? Can the consent be accepted with the patient's verbal consent provided to ARSW, who may have been asking to provide support for any number of reasons?
So when an applicant has been notified that we are about to offer housing, the tenants actually sign a release when they sign the move-in, like the tenancy agreements and all the paperwork that goes along with that. So it is noted in the information who their worker is, the worker's contact, and that I may contact them if necessary. So usually we have a few an emergency contact that may be family, but then we also ask for pharmacy, for doctor, and community support workers. And that would be if there's a concern with the tenancy, mostly around their health, then I would start with the community. I would start with the tenant, of course, but then I would reach out to the community support worker to see what we can do to assist. So yes, we do have a release.
What is the policy around evictions? Is it a case-by-case basis or the amount of violations, etc.?
It's a case-by-case, definitely a case-by-case situation. Every tenant is different. Every situation is different. So we really look at the situation. And I guess if it's, I mean, depending on, we follow the Residential Tenancies Act and all other pursuing legislation as far as landlords. We're a regular landlord as far as that goes. So we're not supportive housing. So we would follow the Residential Tenancies Act, and depending on what it's for, the Residential Tenancies Act, usually it's a series of breaches for the same thing, series meaning 3 or 4 or 3 or more, sorry. So we would start, trying to have a conversation and see how that goes, see if the behavior changes, then might go to written warning, then it might go to a few written warnings, and yeah, take it from there. It just depends on what the reason. Every reason is different. So.
Do you allow pets in any of your buildings?
We do, and it is awesome. So residents are allowed to have 2 cats. They still have to follow the pet policy, and they still have to apply and have approval in order to have pets, or 1 small dog. So small meaning 15 pounds or under, and it still has to, they still, so if it's a cat, they have to take their litter out properly and clean their cat litter, because we don't want it affecting, smelling like urine anywhere. So if it's a dog, the dog can't be barking incessantly. They still have to meet the residential tenancy, peaceful enjoyment of their neighbors when they have a pet. But I can tell you from mostly working in places that did not have pets, yeah, pets are their lifeline. It is awesome. Like, they just want someone to love them, and they want to love someone too. So pets are, it's magical. They love it. So we don't charge for pets. There's no additional security deposit for pets, but they do have to agree to the pet policy.
Thank you. Out of your 7 buildings, my understanding, only 1 or 2 are for those with mental health addiction issues. Are these buildings all downtown? Will you be looking at buildings in communities where persons have their family, medical, social hubs? So important to look at housing in all 4 areas of the city, as most of our housing for our vulnerable persons are north or downtown.
Right. So most of our tenants would be most comfortable in the neighborhoods that they are. So north of the river on the inner city core, that's where the majority of our tenants came from, probably before they ended up being tenants with us. Again, like I said, we're always looking to expand, but it has to be viable, right? Feasible. So you're talking about a not-for-profit who has no government funding for our housing program, except for deficit funding from the buildings that we manage on behalf of the government. So our housing program relies on the rent of our tenants, and obviously we're not charging, we're below market value rent. So in order to build a $10 million building, we're not going to recoup that cost. So it has to be feasible.
Thank you. What causes you not to renew a lease if evictions are rare, and what is the difference?
So a lease is just another word for a tenancy agreement. So there are tenants who begin on a fixed term agreement. And as a landlord, landlords, according to the Residential Tenancies Act, have 2 types of leases or 2 types of tenancy agreements. So there's a fixed term and there's a month to month. Month to month means that it goes on until the tenant ends it or the landlord ends it for the prescribed reasons under the Residential Tenancies Act. And a fixed term agreement has a start date and an end date, and no notice is required to end that tenancy agreement. We would never do that without saying, hey, your tenancy agreement. So fixed term agreement landlords would usually use to give someone a try and possibly do that for, it could be for several, or it could be ongoing until it works up to a year. And so it's just 2 options that a landlord has in renting to any tenant, whether you're a private landlord or a not-for-profit landlord. Public housing, it's an option that is open to landlords.
How would you characterize the relationship between your buildings and tenants and their surrounding neighborhoods and neighbors? How is friction managed?
So depending what the friction, there can be friction between tenants in the buildings. So, one tenant will report this happened with this tenant, the other tenant will report, this happened because she was doing that or he was doing this. Or so I mean, that is no different than any I've been a landlord for 25 years, and that happens no matter where, no matter who or where your buildings are, your tenants are. That's just part of being a landlord. So usually there are 2 sides to every story, and you listen to both and, try to work things out with them. I'm very lucky that I have a fantastic team that can also help. Courtney and Melissa also help provide tenants with support and try to encourage positive outcomes as far as tenants maintaining tenancy and difficulties between tenants.
In a typical year, how many applications does the housing program receive? Has there been a spike in housing needs since COVID has started?
You know what? I can't compare The need since COVID started, because I started in COVID, so the need is substantial. It's a good point. I don't know the stat before, but I would say in any given year, we process probably 50 to 60, 100 applications, several a month. And then one of the conditions of being on the wait list is they have to update, once a year. They have to provide us with new information, and we will send out information to them that they can fill out. And if we can't contact them, we try to reach them by phone. We do our best to, if we mail something out and we don't hear back from them, we'll try to phone, we'll try to call their worker. Once a year, we review the whole wait list, and then people who, we haven't heard from, or, maybe someone is unfortunately deceased, then obviously they're removed at that time. But at any given time, we have about 100 people on the wait list.
Are there any other types of programming that provides tenants an opportunity to meet with other tenants and foster connections and friendships?
So clearly some of our tenants are long-term, so they know each other. Some of them know each other very well. We don't have social spaces in all of our buildings. Well, there is only one place that would be one building that would have enough room for tenants to, but we're fortunate that we have Prosper Place that has programming and meals and a food bank for participants in the West End, that when we amalgamated earlier this year. So Prosper Place is something that I definitely try to encourage with tenants, but anyone who wants a sense of community and shares that common, perhaps mental illness, they are amazing at what they do, and it's a beautiful facility. There's lots going on there.
Thank you. What is the cost for a person on AISH? Are they subsidized, meaning paying $400 for a 951 bedroom like RAB through CIVIDA? How are your current AISH clients affording their housing as they can't afford below market rent?
So, well, a lot, like I said, over half of our clients are AISH. So if they're in the government buildings, subsidized housing, it's rent geared to income. So they would pay 30% of their income on rent. So that's very affordable for them. And then all of our buildings are below market value currently, and most are 15% below. So most tenants, although in those buildings, they may pay 50% of their income on their rent. In Alberta right now, whether it's a new mortgage or, 2-bedroom townhouse costing $2,000, a lot of people pay 50% for their housing. So it used to be 30% was kind of the standard. Now 50% of your income is going to housing. And I'm not saying that's right, but that's reality where we're at. And in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, it's way more than that. So actually the number of AISH individuals, tenants that live in some of our own CMHA housing, they're very good at paying their rent, and they're very good at budgeting.
Thank you. Do participants need to have a confirmed diagnosis, or can they be in the process of receiving one assessing supports? Is a history of suspected mental health diagnosis and incident sufficient to be considered?
Yeah, they don't have to have it because it can be past current mental health concerns or they can just be low income or all combined. So no, they don't have to have a current diagnosis.
Thank you so much, Marnie. That is all the questions I have for now. Maybe we'll just give it another minute or so. If there's any other questions, you can go ahead and type them in the Q&A right now.